Welcome to the second session in our Introduction to the Vertica Database. In the first session, we provided a history of the development of Vertica and a brief description of the Vertica architecture. While presenting information on the various aspects of Vertica through videos can be a great method to become familiar with the database, there is no substitute for hands-on experience. In the first session, I mentioned that OpenText provided a free download for evaluation purposes of the Vertica database. In this session, we will detail how to set up an environment for installing the Vertica database. That will allow us to do an actual vertical installation in the next session. As previously mentioned, having access to a Vertica database will greatly enhance your learning process. You may already have access through where you work or attend school. In that case, you may not want to go through the whole exercise of a vertical installation. However, I do encourage you to review these two sessions to maybe give you some additional insight into Vertica. Another method is to access Vertica through Amazon's AWS. Vertica is available in Amazon's cloud platform. In a later session, we will look at utilizing Vertica running on AWS. That leaves us with creating an environment for Vertica ourselves and installing the demo version of Vertica. Normally, Vertica would be installed on a number of independent computer systems. In our diagram here, for example, we would need 3 independent servers to make up our vertical cluster. In this session, we are going to install a single node configuration of Vertica. We still need a dedicated computer server though. If you have available a standalone machine, then you could skip to the operating system installation of this video. This would get you a single node version of Vertica up and running. However, later, when we wanted to add nodes to this cluster, you would need to come up with additional standalone servers. How we're going to get around this issue is to use virtual machines. A virtual machine is a machine that runs like an application under a host system. To accomplish this, we need an application called a hypervisor. There are quite a few number of hypervisors available. We are going to use the Hypervisor VirtualBox. It is provided as a free download. Here is a diagram showing how a virtualization environment is structured. We have a physical machine that is referred to as the host. This can be a standalone machine, which is recommended, or a machine shared with other applications. The VirtualBox software is installed on the host machine. It allows you to define virtual machines that run under that host machine. The virtual machines can run a different operating system with different many CPUs, disk, and network settings can all be configured. Multiple virtual machines can run under a single VirtualBox host machine. The VirtualBox website is located at virtualbox.org. The home screen has links providing additional information and documentation concerning the VirtualBox software. As always, it's a good idea to take some time and explore all of the information contained on the website, especially if you're new to using virtual machines. On the left side of the VirtualBox home page display is a link for downloads. Click on this link to proceed to the download page. VirtualBox is available to run on a number of different host operating systems. For this demonstration, we will be using a Windows-based host operating system. Clicking on the Windows host link will start the download process for the VirtualBox software. After the download completes, run the executable that was downloaded to start the installation process. The VirtualBox installer will guide us through a number of pop-up menus gathering installation options. The first option is to allow the installer to make changes on your system. Click Yes to allow the installation of VirtualBox to proceed. A welcome screen is then displayed. Click Next to proceed. The next two screens are for performing a custom install and a warning regarding network interfaces. Your network connection may temporarily disconnect during the installation process. Click Next to perform a standard installation and Yes to the network warning. We then get a warning concerning dependencies, which you can just click Yes. Then we get a screen indicated that we are ready for the installation to begin. Click Install to let the VirtualBox installation begin. The installer will then begin the installation. A status screen indicates its progress as it's proceeding. An installation complete display is presented when the process has completed. After the installation is completed, we can go ahead and run the application. When we start VirtualBox, the VirtualBox Manager will be displayed. This is where we can create new virtual machines, define a machine's configuration, and start and stop a virtual machine. Now we can proceed to creating a virtual machine to run Vertica. Vertica supports a number of Linux distributions. Among them is Red Hat, SUSE, Amazon Linux, and others. For our installations, we're going to use the CentOS Linux distribution. CentOS is functionally compatible with Red Hat and is supported by Vertica. It is also available free. Using the VirtualBox Manager application, we can click on the machine bar menu and then select New. This will start the creation wizard to help us define a new virtual machine. The first step will be a Create panel where we minimally need to give our virtual machine a name and select what type of operating system we are going to be running. For our machine, we will give it the name of Vertica-01. In the type selection, select Linux and select Red Hat 9.x for the version. We can take the defaults or leave the remainder of the options blank at this point. In the next panel, we select the amount of memory available for our virtual machine. We are going to specify 4096 megabytes of memory. On this panel, we also specify the number of CPUs that are available. Select 2 CPUs. Then click Next to proceed. The next panel allows us to create a disk drive for the virtual machine. Specify approximately 1 terabyte for the hard drive. Then click Next to continue. VirtualBox will now display a summary of the configuration that we have just specified. Verify that the virtual machine settings are what was specified and then hit Finish. Our new virtual machine is now set up. The VirtualBox Manager displays the machine on the list that's on the left side of the display. VirtualBox provides a number of options for how the virtual machine connects to a network. The default option is to use NAT. That would have VirtualBox assign IP addresses from its internal DHCP server. This would make it difficult for us to connect to Vertica running on the virtual machine from our local network. We will use the option Bridge Adapter. This will connect our virtual machine to our local area network. To make this network change, look for the yellow Settings button in the VirtualBox Manager. With our machine highlighted on the left, click on the Settings button. Click on the Network item and locate the Attached To dropdown. Change the value from NAT to Bridged Adapter. Great. We now have our virtual machine ready to install the CentOS Linux distribution on. Navigating to the CentOS main web page, we can find specific information, documentation, and software downloads for CentOS. For our installations, we are going to utilize the most current versions of software that are available when these videos were created. For this installation, we will be using the CentOS Stream distribution and version 9 of the operating system. On the CentOS website, click on the download option at the top of the page. CentOS website will show two options, one for CentOS Linux and the other for CentOS Stream. Select the CentOS Stream option. Version 9 is currently the latest version available at this time. If a newer version is available, you may still want to utilize version 9 so that your experience is similar to what the training videos are showing. Select version 9 and then select x86/64 platform version. With the CentOS software downloaded, go to VirtualBox Manager. Make sure that our Vertica 01 machine is highlighted and then click on the Start button. Clicking Start causes VirtualBox to attempt to boot the machine. However, at this point, there is no operating system installed and no other boot media connected to our machine. So we can click on the down arrow of the DVD box to point VirtualBox to the CentOS ISO image that we just downloaded. Navigate to the location where you downloaded the CentOS software. Highlight the file and then hit Open. Now the virtual machine will boot and the CentOS installation will begin. On the first screen display, type I to start the installation process. Now CentOS will start booting. The installation will now present us with a number of screens to define the various installation options. The first screen will have us select English for the installation language. One of the things you will notice is that when you move your mouse into the area of the VirtualBox display, it will display a box asking you if you want to capture your input and send it to the VirtualBox machine. Click Capture to allow access to the screen. From this point, your cursor will be captured by VirtualBox and will not let you move outside the machine display area. To free the cursor, you need to hit the right control key. After you have specified the mouse to be captured, you can click on the Continue button. Later, we will fix this annoying issue. We are now presented with a screen of options that let us configure CentOS for Vertica. First, we will set our location and make sure our date and time are correct. Click on the time and date graphic. Select the region where we are located by either dragging the line on the map to the correct location or using the drop-down selection box. Click on the Done button in the upper left-hand corner. To specify the software packages we want installed, click on the Software Selection graphic. Here, we are going to select Server with GUI from the Basic Environment list on the left. In the Additional Software list, select Development Tools and Graphic Administration Tools. Then click Done. We are going to need to create the disk partitions for our Vertica server. To keep things real simple, we're going to use a very minimal disk layout. We are just going to have a boot partition, a swap partition, and then a partition for everything else. Click on the installation destination to begin the process. Vertica has some specific requirements regarding the disk structures that are supported. These may change from version to version, so as we said before, we're going to keep things as simple and as vanilla as possible. By default, the installer will set partitions automatically. However, we want to specify the characteristics of our partitions to make sure they are compatible with Vertica. Under the storage configuration, change the selection from. Here is where we specify our partitions. First, change the partitioning scheme to use standard partition. Now, in the bottom left corner, we are going to click on the plus button to define a partition. We're going to need to do this process 3 times, one for each of the 3 partitions we will define. When you click the plus button, you will get a pop-up to create a new mount point. Select the boot mount point and set the capacity at 800 megabytes. Click Add Mount Point and then hit the plus sign again, and then select the swap mount point. Assign it 4096 megabytes. And finally, select the slash mount point and assign it the remaining space available. Back on the partition screen, you should see our 3 new partitions on the left side of the display. Click on the slash partition and change the file system select to ext4. Do the same for the boot partition. Review the partition configuration and then click Done. A display is shown with the changes that we specified. Click on Accept Changes. Next, we need to configure the network options for our server. Click on the Network and Host Name graphic. In the lower left-hand side, enter a host name of Vertica-01. On the lower right-hand side, click on Configure. Here is where we can define our IP address for the server. Select on the IPv4 Settings tab. We want to have a fixed IP address for our server, so for the method, we will select Manual. Then, click on the Add button and define an IP address, network mask, and gateway address for the server. And finally, we will need to specify a DNS server. Once you have all these options set up, click on Save. Back on the main network screen, click on Done. We will need to set a password for the root account. Click on the root password graphic. Enter a root password and then re-enter it to confirm the password. Click Done when complete. If you specify a weak password, the installer will display a warning and make you click Done twice before letting you continue. Finally, we need to create a user account to be used for the installation of Vertica. Click on the User Creation graphic. Create a user called dbadmin. Give it a password and confirm the password, then click Done. Again, if you specify a weak password, you will need to hit Done twice to continue. Now, after we have made all our selections, we can hit the Begin Installation. The CentOS installer will now begin the installation process. The installation will now proceed. This can take a fair amount of time. The progress bar will indicate where the installer is in the process. When the installation is complete, click on the Reboot System button and the system will reboot. After rebooting, CentOS will display a login screen defaulting to the Enter the password you assigned and congratulations, our CentOS installation is. In the next training session, we will go through the CentOS configuration changes necessary for the installation of Vertica. Once everything is ready, we will perform the actual installation of Vertica and then bring up the database. Thank you for viewing this video, and I hope you will continue viewing our series on Vertica. I would be grateful if you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, as it helps us to provide additional Vertica training sessions. Thanks again.